Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today we are going to start our class by making a quick revision for what we started last time, relevant to the methodology of new criticism. We said last time that their method is not based on reflecting the reader's responses or the writer's feelings. They consider, believing that if the text is analyzed with reference to the author's feelings, is considered as a kind of a fallacy, and they call this intentional fallacy. And if we believe that the text is supposed to be analyzed within or within the framework of the values of the reader himself, it will be considered as a kind of effective fallacy. And something more important than that, T.S. Eliot considers the form as part of the meaning, and it is inseparable from the content, and therefore, paraphrasing the text is not equivalent to its meaning. Why? Because paraphrasing destroys the form, which is supposed to be a basic part of the meaning. And therefore he called that one, paraphrasing as a kind of a heresy of the paraphrase. The heresy of the paraphrase. And we usually say that paraphrasing is not equivalent to the meaning, but at the same time it helps, right? And we recommend that you start by what? By the first thing, which is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing the meaning of the text, right? Of course, this requires what? Discussing the first one, which is checking the diction, the meaning of the words, the word choice, the connotations, and the denotations, So you will not be able to paraphrase unless you check the diction, the meaning of difficult words, their own choice, We explain what do we mean by the word choice, That why did the poet or the writer or the choose a kind of, or a certain lexicon word rather than its a synonym, for example, Because poetry is characterized by economy, and each word is supposed to be deliberately selected, and therefore the choice of words is really very important. So the first thing, to do is to check the diction, the meaning of words, the word choice, connotations, and denotations. This will help us in the process of paraphrasing the text. But we are supposed to make sure that paraphrasing is not the meaning. It's not, We still have some other items to be illustrated, explained, in order to say that we are following the methodology of new criticism, And to make things clear, what do we mean by methodology here? What is the method that we are supposed to do or to follow in order to analyze any literary text according to new criticism, And if I give you a piece of work and without mentioning anything about the writer or the historical period or whatsoever, and you are supposed to write a critical essay about that extract, you are supposed to make sure to follow the 6 steps that I am going to explain to you, in addition to the paraphrasing. So the first one is to check the poem's diction. The second one, which is exploring the conflict. And what did we say about this? Is there anyone who remembers what did we say about this? Sometimes we might have two levels of meaning, And the new criticism assumes that in every text you will always find two levels of meaning, For example, the poem that we are going to apply on is My Last Duchess. And from the title, we understand that the poem is going to tell us about the Duchess, right? But we discover that the poem tells us much more about the Duke rather than the Duchess. And therefore, this is a kind of a paradox, irony, right? And this is the central tension. Moreover, the speaker in the poem tries to hint to us that his wife was a flirtuous bad woman. But what we discover that the man is actually, right, the evil one, not the woman, right? It is exactly, right, like any kind of what? Of paradox or irony, right? Whether verbal irony or the, right, the situational irony or the dramatic irony, right? So this what we call it the central tension according to new criticism, right? Or what are the differences, right? What are what is the paradox between the two levels of meaning, right? This will be much more, right, explained when we come to the application. When we come to the application, we will tell you what do we mean by, right, the central tension. Well, fine. And then after that, what should we do? We have to resolve the ambiguity. And what did we say about ambiguity? I explained that last time. But, right?
The words that might have like two meanings, and we should get the two meanings of the words and decide what meaning ambiguity is.
All right, thank you. Yes, please.
Connecting words together, words in the same sentence together in order to get the idea behind using these words, and then connecting the ideas of these sentences together in the one paragraph or in the stanza in order to get the whole idea of these.
Is this ambiguity? No. Yes, please.
To know the meaning of words and phrases through their context.
Right. We have to explain the ambiguity within the context. Yes.
The meaning is not clear and words but
Good.
more than one meaning.
Excellent.
Like elixir, it might have it might mean remedy or poison. Maybe it would be
Good. This is on, we said ambiguity, it might be lexical ambiguity. It might be a structural ambiguity. It might be, right, a reflexive pronoun ambiguity, right? And therefore, if there is any vague meaning, right, whether in the structure or in the meaning of the lexicon or in the reflexive pronouns used inside the text, we have to explain them to make them as clear as possible, right? But how to explain them with reference to the context itself, right? We are not supposed to assume things far away from the context, right? And I gave you examples last time about the ambiguity, that needs to be resolved, Well, so these are the first three, right, okay, steps that we have to do. Diction, conflict, ambiguity. Just make it like that, right? Diction, conflict, ambiguity, and as well as paraphrasing. What else should we do according to new criticism? Well, explaining the organic unity of the poem. Right. I repeat again what I explained. Let's say that we have a poem that consists of 3 stanzas and a couplet, a heroic couplet. Say this is a sonnet. We have here quatrain, and a couplet, right? So the first stanza is supposed to reflect idea 1, right? And the second stanza reflects idea number 2. The third stanza, it reflects the idea number 3. And right here, right, it is the conclusion. Right? What are we supposed to do in explaining the organic unity is what we call it the interrelatedness, the coherence, the logical development of ideas, right, inside the text. What is the relationship, right, between, right, idea 1 and idea 2, right, and so on and so forth. How idea 2 is related to idea 3, and how the conclusion is, right, concluding the whole thing, right? Usually, right, in English poetry, the first stanza reflects what we call it the single emotion, right? Usually, the first stanza is what? The single emotion. It is exactly like an essay. Whenever you start an essay, you will have a thesis statement. You will have a thesis. What is the thesis statement? Yeah, it summarizes the major ideas of the whole essay, right? So the first stanza in poetry, we don't say that it is a thesis statement which has ideas, but it reflects the single emotion, which means the main idea of the whole poem, right? And stanza 2 and stanza 3 usually are further explanation of the single emotion, right? Either reasoning for the single emotion or examples of the single emotion, right? So it gives further details and explanation of the single emotion, which is stated in the first stanza, right? And the last one, the last couplet, usually is a conclusion for the whole deliberation of ideas, the whole deliberation of ideas. And whenever we talk about this, the logical development of ideas, what do we call it? We call it the organic unity, right? The structure, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and how these parts are related to each other. Did you get the point, sister? Good. All right. Number 5. All right. Examining the figurative elements of the poem, like similes, metaphors, personifications, metonymy, imagery, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Right? And I don't think this is going to be difficult for you because you are familiar to that one. So let's assume that we are going to handle the poem, which is entitled Daffodils, but not from a romantic point of view, but from what? A new criticism, right? What is the first thing that we need to do? Right, yes.
Analyze the figure of speech like the...
Starting with the figures of speech?
No, I mean like to define.
Right, yeah. No, in general, right?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Checking the diction of the poem to know the meaning of the difficult words. Then to explore the conflict, which is the central tension.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a central tension here?
The paradox and irony.
We have central tension in every poem.
Yeah.
The grammar imagination.
Please explain.
We do have central tension in every poem or in every literary work according to the
Yes.
So in the Daffodils, for example, we might explain the conflict in this poem, like the word daffodils, for example. The right meaning of, or the dictionary meaning of this word, and the like what the whole poem is talking about, for example. The paradox between the images that the poet is portraying in this poem.
Right. Yes, please.
Maybe we have to imagine the picture because in our minds, because that will help us to analyze it by our way and to size it by the imagination picture that we have.
Okay. What I mean here, we are supposed to explain the sentences, right? And for example, in the first two lines, when we discuss the daffodils, according to the romantic theory, we were concerned about the primary imagination, right? This is what we focused at and on, right? When we started talking about the daffodils. But if I'm going to tackle it from a different perspective, new critic's perspective, I will focus on the simile, which is as a clown, and try to explain, right, what are the similarities between the speaker and the cloud, right?
And why
And
did he choose the cloud?
not anything else, not anything else. And I will focus on the imagery, the images, right? I'm not going to focus on the unity between the elements of nature, but I will see the picture, the similes, the metonymies, the personifications that are, right, are used by the poet himself. Although we ignored all these aspects when we talked about what? About the romantic analysis. But now we are going to come back to restudy it again, but from what? From, right, a figurative, right, a perspective. Right? After we paraphrase it, after we explain the difficult words, their connotations and their denotations. Right? We are going to do this, by the way. And after we make my Last Duchess, we are going to explain the daffodils again, but from a new critic perspective. Right? So if there is anyone who is really interested in doing that, right, in a presentation, it will be okay. All right, both of you together. Right? Both of you together. Well, fine. And the last thing, right? Well, explaining the prosody. What is the meaning of the word prosody? Versification. We call it what? Right? Versification. What's the meaning of versification? Yeah. That you have to talk about, all right, the meter used, the number of feet, right? The rhyming, right? If it is rhyme and rhyme, okay, what is the rhyme scheme? What is the tone? What type of a tone is there, right? Now? Not sound, the prosody, النظم تبعها, versification. We are talking about the meter. What's the meaning of meter? بحر الشعر تبعها, right? We talk about the number of feet. What's the meaning of feet? عدد التفعيلات, right? How many feet do we have in every line? Did you study this in poetry or not yet? Not yet. Right? The rhyme scheme, right? The type of the stanza. What kind of a stanza is it? Right? Is it a triplet? Is it a quatrain? Is it a couplet? If it is a couplet, is it a heroic couplet or not heroic couplet? Why did he choose this stanza, for example? How does this right form help in explaining the meaning? Right? Okay, for example, right? In my Last Duchess, we will find that the speaker uses a kind of a stanza which is usually used in the neoclassical period by the elite. And the purpose why? Because the speaker wants to show up that he is from the upper class, right? And we discover, right, that he doesn't know what are the rules of composition for this stanza, and therefore he makes a lot of mistakes, which shows that he is, right, he is ignorant, right? So he is showing off by using the type of this stanza, which is used by the elite, to what? To show that he is a knowledgeable person in poetry and he is from the upper class. But we discover, because of the too many mistakes that he makes in composing the same stanza, that he doesn't know how to use it or how to compose it, which shows that he is ignorant. And this is a central tension. He wants to show off that he's knowledgeable from the upper class, but the mistakes that he's doing in composing this stanza, it shows us that he is ignorant, and he is not actually expert in using what? In using the poetic stanzas that have been used in the neoclassical period. Which this is the form which is part of what? Part of the meaning. This is another proof that even, right, the form used, right, reflects part of the meaning, which is helping the central tension. What is the central tension in My Last Duchess? He wants to show us that his wife was flirtatious and evil girl, right? But we discovered that he was, right, the evil, right, personality reflects a kind of a dictatorship, right, in the way he deals with his own wife. Well, fine. In order to summarize the whole thing, right, we are coming to the end of the theory. We discussed the assumptions and we discussed the methodology. The methodology here is actually much easier than, right, the previous methods. All what you need to do is to follow the 6 points, right? Check the poem section, conflict, ambiguity, explaining the organic unity, examining the figurative elements, all right, explaining the prosody of the poem in addition to paraphrasing. Right. So here we can say that we finished, right, the theory of the new criticism. I wanted to start actually with you talking about My Last Duchess, but because you have a midterm very soon, inshallah, right, I will start explaining, right, things related to the exam, if you have any questions about them. And we will start the application of My Last Duchess after the midterm, right? Okay. So if you have any questions about the exam, all right, just ask. But next time I will give you much more idea about it. Yes?
So are the applications of romanticism, they are...
All the applications are included.
Included, but like, will you bring us an extract, for example, of the application?
It is possible too. Yeah. There is a possibility to use it. Yeah.
Any external...
Not in the midterm, but in the final. Not in the midterm. Cool. Yes.
I just want to ask that will these upload these slides of the others as a tragic hero?
Sorry?
The slides of others as a tragic hero.
I sent them to you, didn't I?
No, they are not.
Oedipus as a tragic hero.
As a tragic hero.
Not even romanticism.
Romanticism is possible.
Yeah, already. And right, I think I sent them.
They are not now.
Okay then. I'll do it now when I go to my office. Right. خلاص بدكم تسألوا خلاص. يعني هيك اعتبر انه next time because you are not ready. Okay then. So we are going to talk about it next time. And here we are going to finish our class for today. الله يعطيكم ألف العافية ونكمل المرة القادمة إن شاء الله عن الامتحان.